All right, folks. Well, welcome to the January meeting. I'm looking at my panel here, and what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 25 people aboard so far. I'm sure we'll pick up a few others as we go. Let me switch over and do a screen share. All right. No, you don't need to see that. So welcome to the CapMac meeting for January. First of all, do we have any visitors in the meeting tonight? I didn't think so, other than Craig, and we ought to consider him almost a far East Austin visitor. So he's been with us a few times, and we will certainly call upon him a little later tonight. Membership is pretty steady as to what it was before. As always, we have many different ways for you to keep track of what's going on within CapMac. Little bit of business to take care of. Then I've got a quick product review. Tom has a couple of things to mention, and then we will turn it over to Craig to talk for his talk on using the Apple Pencil, which many of us are looking forward to. First thing up is a little bit of statistics about CapMac. We've had this before, but I'll let you read this. I'm not going to read everything, but basically from this, you can see that we are fairly steady in our participation in various organizations and social media, as well as our meetings and membership. So that's a good sign. CapMac board for 2022 changed a little bit. We've had the addition of Art, and Nancy has left the official board, although we will certainly call on her as often as we can to participate in things. Board meetings are held the Monday before the first Tuesday of the month. If you have interest in joining a board meeting or sitting in, let one of us know and we'll get you the information. As always, we've been recording our meetings via Zoom and putting them up on our YouTube channel. So if you missed something or want to go back and hear it again, or want to refer someone you know to what we have been talking about the meetings, our YouTube channel is a way for you to do that. Help desk, as many of you participated in that this evening, we have an active help desk still, even though we don't have a physical meeting, and many of you participated in a Q&A period from 6:30 until we began this meeting at 7. If you have a question that comes up outside of the night of the meeting, send an email to the president at CapMac, or you can submit it on our Slack channel and it will get to our help desk team. We've had coffee with CapMac a few times in the fall. I've scheduled the next one for the 27th of January at 11:30 a.m. as we usually have. It is already on the calendar, and I'll be adding the Zoom connection information to that calendar entry, as well as sending out a brief email just prior to the event. And as with our general meeting, if you have someone that's interested in Apple and Macintosh and iOS products, invite them to join us. It's more the merrier kind of event. A couple of images I wanted to share with you that are specific to Apple products. Number one is iOS adoption rate, and you can see that it is going very strongly. iOS 14 is slowly shrinking, and then there's a small but steady amount of older versions of iOS still out there. I thought this was interesting with regards to smartwatches. Apple is the largest shareholder of any one vendor in the smartwatch market, though it is less than a quarter of the overall market. I think that a lot of that comes because while the Apple Watch is very good, it's also very expensive. And that keeps many from joining in, or if they don't have an Apple phone. So those were some slides I wanted to share. So let me jump into my product review. Then I will let Tom speak for a couple of minutes, and then we'll turn it over to Craig for him to talk about the Apple Pencil. What I wanted to mention tonight is an app called MenuMeters. It is a free open source application that you can download. Either you can download the pre-compiled version, or if you are wanting to, you can go out and grab the source code and compile it yourself. As the name implies, what it does is provide you with a series of meters in your menu bar that will display in real time various values for your system. Memory, data transmissions over your network, your processor temperature and the load on your various processors, and information about your disk drive and how the I/O is going. I at first was going to try to do this in real time so you could see it, but I decided that by the time I shared my screen, those little things at the top would be invisible. So I decided to use it with a series of screenshots instead. So the menu bar app, not only does it give you the items or the icons that are interactive or dynamic in your menu bar, but you can click on those and get further information about each category. So what I did here was to grab a couple of those. I've got a couple of more slides. So you click on memory usage and there's a pull down menu. You click on network and there's a very long pull down menu. I only got about half of it captured in this screenshot. If you look at your disk I/O, it'll talk about all your disks and give you some historical information about what's going on those drives. And then lastly, if you are looking at your processors, it gives you information about them, average load and how many do you have and so on and so forth. So it gives you a good view at what's going on your machine. You also have some settings that you can make via the preference panels to customize how the app works. Have a lot of things there, but there are a few settings that you can change, such as the frequency of refresh and so forth. And so you have, again, a panel for each of the four categories: processors, memory, network, and your disk drives. So that gives you some ways of customizing it. And then finally, what this is a port of a program developed by Alex Harper earlier. And now you can go to the site listed in the website if you wish to download it and install it. I've been running it on my Mac since mid-November, and I like it because it gives me a good idea of what's going on at any particular time. Any questions? All right, then let me go on. Oops, I didn't get a slide for Tom. Let me go on to Tom now. He had some things he wanted to share. Let me unshare my screen.
Had to get my mute off. Okay, first of all, this is for my wife, Terry. She says there's new iPhone info added to the CapMac web pages. 2 PDFs with screenshots have been posted on the CapMac website. These PDFs have to do with the iPhone iOS 15 update, metadata on photographs, the Photos app, and View EXIF app. For metadata to be recorded when a photograph is taken, you must have internet services access and allow this in the privacy settings, and also allow maps and camera to use location services. Okay, the first PDF is titled iOS 15 Photos Taken on iPhone, How to View Image Number and Some Metadata. The update to iOS 15 now allows you to see a few new items when in the Photos program. The new information button allows viewing of the image number, ability to adjust the time and date of an image, and view and adjust, delete the location metadata. The second PDF is titled iOS 15 View More EXIF Data in Photos on iPhone by having View EXIF app installed on it. If you have updated to iOS 15 for the iPhone, more export options from photos have been added. By having the View EXIF app on your phone, you can use the export button to view all the EXIF metadata information of a photograph while in the Photos app, and export choices are given. This is one of those things that this app, it doesn't transfer you to the app, but it enhances the Photos app, giving the Photos app more features. And check on the website. Terry spent an awful lot of time getting these screenshots and everything just right. There was a third one out there, and they just came out with an update and took away the features that she was talking about. The other thing I want to talk about is our friend Michael Sidoric. As you know, he's moved down to San Antonio. He did that so he could draw Bill O'Barr down to San Antonio. So we lost Bill to San Antonio. Anyway, Michael has been working, as many of us know, we participated in the GeoGo efforts here in Austin. We went out and tagged all sorts of the locations of all sorts of things, all sorts of doorways and so forth. So folks that were blind or otherwise not able to know where something was could get directly to a location, to the doorway, very precise. Well, Michael has been working on Apple for a long time, and Apple has finally expanded their maps coordinates, longitude and latitude, by a couple more digits at the end, which instead of the location being down to several yards, it is now down to within 8 inches. That is a major difference. Michael has also been working with folks in San Antonio. He's got a friend on the city council. And San Antonio is going crazy with GeoGo. The Commerce and Tourism Office are putting GeoGo tags in their brochures for all the items they're talking about, all the places they're trying to get tourists to go. They're getting precise GeoGo tags exactly where that is. So Michael's very happy about that. And I thought people in CapMac would like to know, because a lot of us worked with Michael on this when he was here a few years ago. And I'm just real proud of his efforts, and that he's made a success of GeoGo. And that's it. Any questions? Okay, I'm muted again.
Well, thank you, Tom, for updating and letting everyone know about the changes or additions onto the website. So one thing I wanted to mention here, because this is at the perfect time, as Tom and I have both done tonight, we've shared some things about applications or projects that we are interested in that we thought everyone else would be interested in. You too can do that at a future meeting. If you have an app that you wanted to share with everybody, or something along the lines of what Tom did, let us know, and the board, so we can put you on one of the programs in one of these short slots. That way you can share something that you are interested in that you think is that everyone wants to know or might want to know with the rest of us. It helps everyone learn a little bit more at every meeting. So with that said, speaking of learning about new things, I'm going to turn this over to Craig. Most of you should remember that Craig is the president of the London Mac User Group. He is sacrificing sleep to be with us tonight. Don't know quite, I don't remember exactly, what is it, 8 hours difference between us and you?
6.
It's currently 1:15 in the morning.
Ah, well, I hope you can stay awake for the rest of the evening. I certainly would have a challenge if it was me doing the same thing that you're doing. So with that, I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to Craig.
Thank you. If I can, I think I can share my screen. I hope I can at this point. Let's have a little look. Okay, hopefully everybody can see. So I thought to start with, I would like to give a little bit of a background story of where the idea of Sketchbook to iPad came from, and a little bit about me and some other things that you may find interesting along the way. So firstly, who am I? I actually look after many different things and do 2 or 3 different careers at once. So one being a photographer, and then another rabbit hole is I also work as an illustrator. I look after the London Mac User Group. Thank you for John to explaining that. I'm sure some of you have even joined our meetings in the past. And I also create lots of podcasts, as well as doing lots of Mac automations. And thanks to shortcuts being introduced to the Mac, yes, it's still not stable, but it's got far more interesting and more active in regards to that. So where did the idea of drawing and illustrations and using pencils come from? It actually came from a set of photographs that I found at home when I was about 8 years old. And I would like to throw it out to the group. Can anybody identify who this is in the photograph? I should give some more clues as I go along.
I think that's Sterling's, isn't it?
It's very close.
Sterling Hayden.
So part of my family history involves these particular cars. It wasn't till I discovered a box of photographs in my granddad's home that there was quite a backstory to these, and that I discovered that my grandfather and my great-grandfather worked as Formula One car designers during the early 1940s, right up until 1975. So hence the inspiration of illustration and some of the backstory of where my ideas come from. Over time, obviously, as things change, so does their design. In a short space of 40 to 50 years, this just shows you how much they've changed. My granddad's first job was designing the car patterns on the wheels. He was a wood maker and pattern maker, so he would make his tools first, and then he would start creating his designs. But more importantly, what do we use? So is there anybody in the group that likes drawing or does any illustration things? By all means, chip in. It'd be interesting to hear that.
Yes.
Hey, that's always a good sign. So where have we come in terms of drawing? Lots of things have changed. Who wants a stylus? Do we lose styluses? Does anybody recognize these statements?
Yes.
Nobody ever wants to use a stylus. I wonder who ever said that. Well, 6 years later, guess who introduced a stylus? Somebody also mentioned that they would file down their fingers before they introduced an iPad mini. But I remember that very well. London was chaos, as was other Apple stores when the iPad mini launched. And I happened to take this photo for one particular reason. Because I spent 8.5 hours outside an Apple store to be the first person to get one.
Covent Garden.
Yeah,
You were dedicated.
it was Covent Garden, and the store looks very different now. Sadly, the tables are gone in the middle, and there's a huge screen. So the journey of the iPad started at this point. And if you notice, this is actually the generation 1 of the iPad. And in the UK, I don't know if you was aware, but we went for almost 7 months without an app store. So we were stuck with the generic apps that came on the iPad. But what changed with the Apple Pencil? How many of you already own an Apple Pencil? Is it generation 1, generation 2?
Generation 2, and it doesn't work.
Oh no. Do we know why?
Not sure.
So what came with the generation 1? It contained a charging port at the end. It had a very smooth, too shiny surface, in my opinion, and it had tilt and pressure sensitivity. But more annoyingly was the charging port. I don't know how many of you had this or have used it. A common one was losing the charging port, or I would always describe it as a child putting their pencil in their ear when they charged it because it stuck out the bottom of your iPad, as well as losing the caps. I think at one point, the replacement caps was the top trending thing online. Supposedly, it had pixel perfect precision. Yes, it may well have done before some of the other products out on the market as drawing implements, but it wasn't exactly perfect. Tilt and pressure sensitivity. The best thing of all was the lag. I don't think there was ever a lag. I don't know if anybody else wants to dispute that, but from a drawing perspective, it's probably the best on the market. And of course, they're now priced at $99. One thing to be aware of is the importance of buying the right one. Obviously, you've got version 1 and 2, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend buying this one if your iPad is compatible with version 2, purely because of the connectivity issues that you might find. And in particular, holding it is a big difference, but we'll come to that in a second. So then, of course, we got iPad Pencil 2. What changed in that process? Again, they considered delivering pixel perfect, industry-leading technology. This is far more like a general pencil. But of course, with this one, don't use a pencil sharpener, please. Again, virtually no lag. It had an increase in pressure, and tilting technology for shading, like a general drawing pencil. And the one thing was, of course, we lost the cap. It now charges directly through the body here. It just connects nicely on the top so you can see the charging. It magnetically attaches. I don't know, has anybody invested in the cases that they bought out? Apple bought out some pencil cases, which is quite a difference. Of course, now we can change the nibs, and they actually fit both models. So don't be worried that you bought the wrong one. And I added a little list here to show exactly which ones it's compatible with. The way I would recommend remembering it is if it has a USB-C port on the bottom of your iPad, it will charge and it will have compatibility from it. Drawing apps for iPad. So some of you mentioned that you like drawing. Is there any particular apps that you use to draw with?
What
anybody
came with the
recognize this?
iPad?
Ooh, that's interesting. So first of all, personally, I would say Procreate is probably one of the best drawing applications there is. It has seen major updates since its initial launch, and from a cost-effective point of view, for the price of £10, it's far superior to some of the others, and it's pretty much on par with Adobe Illustrator's level of technology at 3/4 of the price less. Another one that I would recommend is Concepts. Has anybody used the Concepts app? This is very good if you do lots of technical drawing or measurements, architectural style ideas, or anything involving vectors. So you can resize your images very easily, especially if you want to print them out at different scales. Of course, Photoshop. One to love or hate. It got lots of criticism at the beginning because they couldn't really offer the full functionality of Photoshop on an iPad. I'd say it's pretty much there now. And they kind of like to hint that they can run more layers than anyone else. I think that's debatable, personally. Some other ones along the line. Does anybody recognize this app? It's recently changed its logo. It's now called Paper. It used to be called Paper 53. This is very good if you like keeping a journal and you like your handwriting. It syncs really well across different devices. The one nice function of this is if you liked keeping a sketchbook on paper, or that you kept an album of cuttings, this is a very good app in terms of giving that kind of user experience. Adobe Illustrator. Does anybody use Illustrator here?
I've tried, but don't understand it.
I
Yeah,
would say if you didn't get on with it on a Mac, I would say give it a second chance on an iPad. It's a far more easier process to learn using an iPad, and it comes more natural in terms of understanding some of the more advanced functions, especially when using a pencil.
Thank you.
It's great if you're going to make logos, illustrations, different graphical things. It works really well if you do things for Zoom, which I'm sure we'll come to in a moment. And then, does anybody recognize the famous little dog icon?
AstroPad.
Ray. Does anybody use AstroPad? And if so, what for?
Yes, for editing photos.
Oh, awesome. Do you know the background story of where AstroPad came from?
No.
AstroPad was actually an internal project for Apple when they was developing Sidecar, and the two designers left Apple to set up AstroPad as a private firm. And I think it's been really successful for them. They also make another add-on which uses like a USB dongle that you can attach to other Macs. So if you liked using target mode, which is no longer a function, for Mac OS, it's a way of bringing that back. So you can use a second machine as another monitor. And of course, it turns it into a drawing tablet. Time for a demo. And if I can just stop my screen for a second. I am going to try an experiment, so please bear with me. Hopefully you can see my lovely hand actions. No, it's not sign language. So I mentioned earlier, this is where it all began with the standard generic pencil and a sketchbook. So inside the box of photographs, there was also some illustrations, and hopefully you can see these. And this also gives you a clue
They're
of when
very
they were
small,
drawn.
Craig, because we're just seeing you
Yeah.
in one small segment of the
I
bigger
don't, do you want to
screen.
pin me to being full screen? I wonder if that will do it.
Switch to speaker. Everybody needs to switch to their speaker view rather than gallery view.
Yeah.
And it makes the speaker larger.
Yeah.
Or as Craig said, you can pin it and he becomes the prominent, dominant figure.
So here are some illustrations. And
Are those all you've done on your iPad?
no, if you look at the date, it might be a clue.
I can see.
So these are actually my granddad's drawings when he was sent away in World War II. And he worked in a completely different part of the war in that he was a cinematographer. So it was his job to provide entertainment for troops across Europe, starting in India and went all the way over to Japan. And I came across this, which is actually a self-portrait of him during World War II. And I'm amazed that these have survived on the paper that they have. There's over 200 drawings. But that brings me to mine.
Love it.
So my illustration story carried on and on and on. The style has changed slightly, obviously, because of the time period that's different. And these are also really important to me in terms of what happened during the pandemic. So for me, obviously being stuck at home for the first few months, not being able to work as a photographer, it brought back some illustrations, and I set myself a project to keep drawing every single day of the pandemic. And then I thought about how could I transfer this in different ways? So yes, we are advanced and we're using Zoom and talking thousands of miles apart. But what if we went backwards and we started writing letters again? So that then transferred to envelopes. And I got some back from different people that I wrote to or I drew to. And then the story kind of continued way more than I expected in terms of taking that illustration to an iPad.
What did you do?
So I actually have two ways of showing you this, but I don't know which way you would prefer. So I don't know how clearly you can actually see my iPad. Is it quite clear?
It's clear. That's
Pretty
great.
Clear,
good.
but we can't read the logos.
That should be fine for the moment. So this started me on a challenge of also being a computer geek, of how many different ways can I draw on an iPad? So I used to be a photographer using Wacom. Does anybody have experience with these?
Yep.
My frustration with these is over the time, they go really sticky. I don't know if you've ever found that. The rubber deteriorates. And then I was like, maybe we could combine using paper and iPads. So I invested in one of these. I don't know if any of you have ever used one of these. An Inkly, which lets you draw on paper.
Yeah, I used one of those.
How did you find the experience of that?
Well, it was better than nothing, but it fell short for me.
Exactly. That was my exact point. So then I thought about, okay, let's try something else. Let's try this. So Wacom actually did their equivalent of an Apple Pencil before it came out. And it had the typical rubber nibs and it was Bluetooth enabled. Didn't really have the same effect. And then I thought, okay, let's try the experts. Let's try Adobe. So I don't know if any of you have ever seen one of these. These were actually not available in the UK to buy for a long, long time. So Adobe actually brought out a Bluetooth pencil with an Adobe app that you could draw with. And you could actually use the case as a ruler. And it was very precise for architectural products. Sadly, the grip is terrible. I don't know if you can see this, but it's twisted. Not exactly the most user-friendly input device for drawing on an iPad. It also didn't charge very well. If you're considering something different to an Apple Pencil, or it's out of your price range, I don't know, have any of you ever seen an Anandjot? So if I unscrew this, hopefully, can you see the little end?
Yes.
It has a little tiny plastic trim. This was very clever in that they discovered that it can pick up the magnetic touch points in an iPad display and get a very precise drawing. So if you're an architecture student or that you want something rather technical, this will actually draw a straighter line than an Apple Pencil. They did many different versions of these. I think these are about £20. They introduced a Bluetooth one, which has pressure sensitivity. Another pencil, yet another one. Anybody remember these? this was the very first Apple pencil that paired with an app, and it was made by Paper 53, the app that I mentioned earlier, and you charged it via USB. It had a very clever function in that you could press on the screen just to pair it. I think Apple took that concept away. And then, of course, we got to Apple Pencil number 1 with our charging port. And this is where we are now. And what I thought I would do is I could show you some different ways in which this is being used in a practical term. But I'm trying to figure out, what would you prefer to see? Would you prefer to see me go through it with an overhead view, or did you want me to screen share it? I was going to potentially try and do the both. Let's see if we can do it. Let me pair it.
I think you're on a roll right now.
Okay, so let's get this to pair properly. Okay. So I'm going to go back to screen sharing for a moment. Close this one. And hopefully you can now see my iPad.
Yes.
So I mentioned Procreate. You can probably see I've spent a small fortune in testing every one of these different types of drawing apps to try and find the best combination of what works, what doesn't. And if I pop open Procreate, does any of you have any experience in using this app? Okay. So these are actually some of the illustration projects that I've been working on recently. And I shall show you some different ways of how they're built. So I'm going to actually open up this one. Does anybody recognize this character? So I would approach these projects in 2 different ways. So initially I could just draw directly onto the iPad, or sometimes I choose to draw on paper and then take a photograph of my drawing rather than having to scan it in like I would have done in the past. And this particular illustration is split up into many different factors. So slowly you will see the drawing gets broken down to its original sketch. This was actually drawn directly onto the iPad. And then for those of you that are familiar with Photoshop and using different layers, I'm sure you can see how it's been broken up into different areas. In the same way a traditional illustrator would have done when they did cartoons such as Tom and Jerry, Cinderella. The very last animation that was to be done as a full-scale movie that was hand-drawn was Disney's Anastasia. If anybody remembers that movie.
Yes.
Also one of my favorite ones.
Yes.
Procreate gives you so much in terms of functionality. So obviously this is done in a cartoonic type style. And then I'm going to go back to the gallery here. So recently I was given a project to illustrate the front cover for a horror book. And I had to do various different studies. So this actually looks like it's drawn on paper when actually it's not at all. It was purely done through the iPad using the pencil. And it was actually from a reference image, which you'll see at the bottom here. But you can actually apply different textures of paper, and that the pencil will react based on those types of paper. So let's go out of this one. Similar basis. We've got, let's pick. So as the story went along, it got more and more advanced and the designs changed. I was given a brief of it must have a knife, or we can't see the character's head. There was different variations to this. And the final image was actually this one here. But what I wanted to show you was how this is not actually one drawing. And what the pencil has enabled us to do here is that it was actually numerous different studies in different parts, and the entire picture is actually broken up. And what I shall do is her head disappears. Then we lose the shading, which was another function of the pencil, her body. So what this allows you to do, and especially from an illustrator's perspective, is that I'm not having to redraw the entire drawing over and over again, which would have spent hours and hours and hours trying to do that. This will allow you the functionality of taking things in sections, being able to change the scale, the perspective, the amount of times I'm given a drawing and the color needs to change, or that there's one particular area they don't like. Again, looking for reference material, there was the knife as the reference. So I was able to drop that in over the top while I'm drawing to give me some ideas. And then she starts to come back. And she looks very different if you take the textured paper away. I think you can see it. She kind of loses her traditional drawing style in that respect. Yeah, I should do here. Another particular way you could approach drawing on an iPad is using different materials. So this particular character, you can probably see at the moment, is missing an eye. And the reason is hidden away in the layers are actually digital photographs of eyes that have been scanned in to then be able to use that as a layer. And one thing that the requirement of the client for this particular one was that they really wanted this material texture. And it was a back and forth argument of trying to get this right. Do I draw it? Do I paint it? And I shall let you guys into a secret that this is actually a photograph of the jumper I was wearing when I drew it. And I embedded that into the picture.
Mm.
And again, this can obviously be broken down into groups. You'll see exactly how I drew this. The textures can disappear. And let's bring his skin tones. I normally work in two ways. I will have their shades to give him the 3D effect. And then his skin color going right down to rather scary blue eye in the top there. And somewhere in here is the original line drawing. There we go. with these shiny white teeth. I wish my teeth were that white. And there's some other ones here. I don't know if you want to pick some out. I can happily explain how they were done. You've got the animated crab drawn in a very different way again. And he's split up into watercolors. Got his separate legs. And here you can actually see where I started. It was literally a very rough drawing on an iPad to start with, to then use the colors and textures to build him up. And then I would take away that sketch layer to show how he's made. What I thought I would do is, I wonder, today I actually went to the National Gallery in London, and I've been drawing some bits and pieces from there as well. And let's bring this back up. And what I will do is, if I swap this out, I'm going to swap devices for a second. I thought I would show you some different ideas from different apps. So I mentioned Paper, which is the one just here. Paper 53 were the creators of the pencil, the brown one that I had here. You can see on my camera. So I like this app because it reminds me of Moleskine sketchbooks, if anybody uses those. And it gives you far more a tradition. You can create your own book. You can customize the colors of them. You can change, you can even put an illustration of your own on the front. There are some quirky bits to this app. They've recently introduced paid tiers, which works out about £8, £9 a year. Don't know if I'm a fan of that just yet. I don't really see the point. But this will enable you to have a sketchbook approach. So this was something that I was playing with on my journey to work over Christmas. Ideas playing around with on the train. And then I was actually given a study reference to do a project with Tom and Jerry. I've been using this as an idea panel. I particularly like this app for the fact that you can choose the different types of paper that I want to work on, which is useful, especially if you're doing a storyboard or a panel. You don't necessarily have to use this for drawing. It could be working out slides in Keynote. But me being rather traditional, you can probably see on my camera that when I was coming up with the ideas to speak to you today, I drew them all out of how I was going to do it and what I wanted to do. So one thing that's really nice with this app is, and I think the closest to using watercolor paints, is that it has a very nice finish. And when you overlap, it blurs slightly. It also depends on how much pressure I'm putting on the paper. And I particularly like the way that it mixes colors. So at the bottom here, you've got a color wheel. So we're in yellow here. And then if I go into orange, you can actually blend the two colors, which is more natural for someone that's used to drawing and painting. Brings up different layers. It feels more like a tin of paints in your paint box that you would get used to using. Same with pencils. There's also this nice feature in that you can actually smudge them. So you can do it by hand. You can probably see me pushing it on my camera as much as I'm drawing to blend the colors together. But let's say I got fed up with that and I wanted to move it. You can literally cut it out, which you can use to your advantage in terms of drawing an illustration and you want to rescale it. That's another way you could do it. Make it smaller, push it to the front, literally drag and drop with things like this. The roller is a bit of a strange one. Lots of people don't really get on with this. It's trying to get the angle of it right. It's probably easier to just do full circles. You've now got a reference panel, so you can import photos, you can go from another page in a journal, you could even draw over a photograph you've taken with the camera. And then, of course, in the paid tier, it allows you to have far more preset options and panels to making illustration easier, including phone templates. So if you're an app developer, you can obviously use that to work out how your app's going to work or what you would like it to look like. And if I bring this back, again, it's like closing a book. I can jump in and out of the different ones here. Testing out different papers. It offers a lot in terms of getting different books for front covers, and there is entire courses and different ideas of how you could use the app. Some people use this just for mathematical graphs or pie charts. That's another way that it can be used. 30-day challenge is something similar to like what I showed you with my drawings in terms of drawing every day through the pandemic. It suggests a different topic for each day for you to sketch an idea. That's quite a nice thing from a learning perspective. And if I pop that one out. Somebody mentioned that they edit photographs. Is it Nate? Do you use an iPad to edit the photographs?
Yeah, so I use the AstroPad connected to my Mac. So I may use something like Affinity Photo, and then if I need to like mask something out, I'll use AstroPad on the iPad to get those fine details on removing like down to the hair level.
Perfect. Because example being, I had to do a fashion shoot in the week, and example being another way that you can obviously use an Apple Pencil, and it's much faster using an iPad and a pencil than it is doing this with a mouse, I can assure you, is let's literally try and clean some of the areas up on this picture. So I can literally draw over the area, and I think you get the idea, but it will literally be a much easier cleaning up process. The AI behind it has got much better. It used to be terrible, and you would end up trying to remove a spot mark somewhere and you would get a clone of some teeth. So you could have a double set of teeth. Same with working with materials. That can always be tricky. Just trying to think. Or hairlines. So I can literally just draw over the hairs to wipe them out. From a photographer's point of view, this is kind of the way forward for someone that spent several £1000s on Wacom tablets in the past. This has kind of defeated the object of ever buying one or needing one ever again. And that's from somebody that owned a 27-inch Wacom tablet that cost the price of a small computer. Never again. That was bought on a whim. So it's good to hear that other people use it for photography. I'm going to discard the changes to this one for the moment. Does anyone use it for mind mapping? So I'm a particular fan of MindNode. And with the iPad and the pencil, I can literally draw in new boxes. And I don't know if you can see on my camera, but it has text recognition. And I can come off of this one. And it's just a very graphical way of breaking things down. And in this particular app, you don't necessarily have to use just text. You can embed emojis, you can embed pictures, you can draw in other styles. Example being, I'll happily do this. We was planning how to do some podcast recording for the Mac user group. And this was literally how we were going to do it. What existing equipment we had, just a graphical way of doing something rather than writing it out as a list. Pull that one back out. Sorry. Does anyone do anything with audio on an iPad? One particular thing you can do with this is you can actually edit audio. So in here, you can see, this is actually an interview that we recorded a while ago. And you've got the different individual colors. So you can see myself here, Craig, Martin, Alistair, Tina, and background soundtrack. With a pencil, it makes life so much easier in being able to grab these and move them around, to change the audio around. Literally being able to split a track and move it. Fairlight is really good for doing that. If you've never used it, it comes highly recommended. You can change the volume really easily. In terms of editing it, it just is much more easier to navigate an app that's quite complicated, that has different aspects to it. Using a pencil makes your life far more easier in being able to do that for sure. And I come back out of this. And whilst I was thinking about different ideas, I thought I would do something quite quirky, and I'm sorry about this, John, but you got your own caricature whilst I was on the tube. So if you need a new logo for CapMac, there you go. I didn't quite know if it wanted to be in watercolors or if it was just a pen illustration. But the idea started all from a piece of paper, which is somewhere hidden over here. Yeah, so here comes the comparison. So you can see what was achievable on an iPad to what was done on paper. So hopefully that gives you an idea or an overview of different things that you can do using an iPad and a pencil.
Great question.
Yeah, go for it.
Do you have any ideas or well, I know you don't need it, but do you have any ideas on how to learn to draw on the iPad? I've tried Shadow Draw and I can't get into the way they do it.
Yes. Do you know what I would recommend? If you grab an iPad, go and take a photograph of something that you would like to draw with the iPad and start tracing it. Once you get used to the different ways of tracing it, getting used to navigating the screen and where to turn it, it kind of goes with the flow. There are some really good recommendations in terms of illustrators or artists out there that are great for explaining the process. One being this wonderful person. If I lift this book down from above me, don't know if you can see this. Sketch Every Day. This book is written by a Dutch lady that was a game designer, an illustrator, and she left to set up her own company. But to be fair, all she does now is Instagram projects and teaching other people to draw. And this was all done with Procreate. She actually created the illustrations and the book. But this entire book goes from start to finish of learning how to draw on an iPad.
Wow.
And I wish this was around when I started, because this is a great resource. You could literally do the whole year, every day doing a different project. I shall happily share a link to the book, if you can see. If you love illustration, one website to look up is 3D Total Publishing. They independently print books for designers, illustrators, game artists. And if I tell you how many books are on the bookshelf behind me, you'd be pretty scared. I would hate to think that the shelf would fall off. It would probably kill me. Yeah, there's quite a few. Another particular good one is this book's been updated since, but this comes recommended. I actually know the person that wrote this. The Beginner's Guide to Drawing with Procreate. And again, this one is clever in that what it does is it will give you project ideas to draw, but it breaks down every step of that illustration, what layers they used, what brushes they used. But the helpful thing with this is that it actually has a QR code at the back of the book, and you can download the projects to put on your iPad, all in different stages. So it makes it much easier to follow or to figure out how they were done. That's a really nice idea that someone's been willing to share that and just show how they came up with it. Both of those come highly recommended. They're different ways of drawing. Are there any other questions? I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute. I'm going to look in this chat box too, sorry.
Is anybody familiar with using AutoCAD on an iPad?
Yes. It's not the easiest thing. What was you looking to try and create would be my question.
My daughter's studying interior design and she's supposed to use AutoCAD, but we're a Mac family. And
okay, hey, so I'm actually standing here with her. Yeah, so as she said, I'm doing interior design and I've been learning on the PC at school, but like Mom said, we're Apple Mac people. And I have downloaded AutoCAD for iPad, but I suck at it. And I've looked for tutorials online and they're complete crap. So any like suggestions or guidance as to where I might look or learn, do you have any?
Yes, so you are right in saying that they're not exactly the best tutorials. That app's been quite slow in getting to the market. For someone that used to teach AutoCAD, on PC, the dreaded PC word. The closest you'll get for Mac is ArchiCAD in terms of the same level of detail and technology that you'd need. I've used AutoCAD for Mac for when it was a beta, so that's quite a few years ago now. I would recommend trying to find books on the process, but for Windows. I know that sounds horrible coming from Mac world. They're far more supportive in trying to do that. Obviously, some of the command keys and things will be different. I shall find it for you. If you send me an email, I've got loads of reference material of how that converts over to Mac and PC, and especially the iPad. If I was going to start using it on iPad first, I would recommend using a mouse with your iPad to do that.
Okay. Yeah.
AutoCAD is a very mouse-driven product.
Even the most basic of thing, like trying to input inches or feet for a line, it doesn't, I don't even know what it is, because it's a really large number with a decimal, and I was just trying to figure out how to do that, specifically put in inches or feet, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I don't know if you're aware, but by default, the app doesn't have it as measurements. It will use it as life-size scale. You have to go into the settings of the app to change it to which type of measurements you are going to be using or that you're referencing to. I know an argument here was always that we would receive drawings in inches, because I know you guys love inches rather than centimeters and millimeters, which was a right pain when people printed out huge drawings that were completely wrong in their terms of scale and size. Yeah, I have some horror stories of people making models and printing them at scale 1 to 50 when it was 1 to 500. Oh Lord.
Yeah. Not fun.
Would you mind if I took your information and sent you an email? Because any references, I've just been struggling so much, and I hate to have to buy a PC specifically to use AutoCAD. If I can.
No, that's fine. I can happily do that for you.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
That's all right. Thank you. Any other questions?
Got a question. I saw it look like Illustrator on your iPad. Is that anything worth considering?
It is. I would say if you've got experience with using Illustrator on Mac or on a PC, download it and try it. It's helpful to have existing files and then open them on an iPad to understand the user interface, because it is quite different. The only problem I would say is, in typical Adobe world, everything comes with a subscription, and it's getting more and more expensive by the day. It's about £50 to £55 a month for all of the applications here in the UK. I don't know how that translates to you guys, but it's not worth it anymore.
It's over 700 a year.
Yeah, that's probably about the same. I use these on a day-to-day basis, but I'm contemplating using other apps purely on that basis. I've slowly moved away from Adobe Audition for audio and gone to Logic, because paying £55 a month just doesn't make sense.
Wow.
By the end of the year, you could buy a new Mac.
Certainly one thing I'm seeing from what you've been showing tonight is to use a pencil really well, you have to have some artistic skill.
Yeah.
The one thing I don't have.
You know what? I don't know. Are you still able to do events in Apple stores at the moment? Or are they all online only?
I don't
because
know
they
if
used
they're doing them in store or not.
they used to do an illustration one once a month that was really good. And what they would get you to do was to draw the person sitting opposite you in the kindest of ways. That course comes highly recommended. I don't know if that's actually on the schedule for US ones, but for here it was. I know Covent Garden Store did it and Regent Street did, or they did an outdoor project during the pandemic where it was take your iPad out to draw architecture within London. That's another way of playing around with it and getting some ideas. That's been really helpful. I know people that have got no background in art and design and come up with some great things through that.
You still have to be able, you still have to at least be able to draw a circle. And speaking personally, I can't do that. I have members who can draw.
Remember that thing that I showed you one time about where you could make something look like a circle and then you tapped on it and it would turn into a circle?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's actually been embedded in lots of other apps now. I think one app started doing it and the shape recognition slowly has gone into every other thing. I think Adobe stole lots of the background knowledge behind that.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody use an iPad or a pencil for something completely different to some of the things that I've suggested?
Yeah,
does anyone actually write notes?
Yes. Yeah, that's basically what I use it for.
I use it on my iPad Pro to go through my mail. It's great for dragging and dropping mail and just sitting.
Yeah, it makes it faster.
With my iPad Pro, I got one of the big ones, so I can put 3 columns up and I can file stuff, delete it, and get through mail really quick with it.
That's good to know.
Does anybody have a recommendation of like a highlighting app for text? I've gone through many different ones in the past and can't find one that I really like or get along with.
No. Highlighting, you mean like where we would take a marker and a yellow marker and highlight?
Yeah, that's right. There is an app called Highlighter. I don't know how they got away with using the name, but that's subscription based, I think.
There's Christian just put a suggestion in the chat. Did you see that? Okay.
Yeah, that's great. Sorry, I'm just reading through some of the other ones.
I animate. Okay.
Yeah, with reference to the Apple classes, it looks like they're still all online.
I was going to say, Nancy, I don't know if anybody can hear me. I supposedly have my mute turned off. Actually, if you have a photograph and you start with that and you can trace it, you can actually draw really well from that. And it gives you a kind of a step up because you don't actually have to know how to draw. You just have to start from a fairly decent photograph that kind of shows what you want to show. And then you take the photograph away. I do that. I do a lot of illustration work for quilting pattern companies, and I often have to start from a photograph because I have to have things be accurate. You know, someone's holding a hand doing a certain type of stitch or something, and that works really well. And then you just take the photograph away when you finish with the drawing.
You actually put the photograph on your iPad? And then
well, I've never done anything on an iPad. I do it on my Mac, and I do it in Illustrator. So anyway, that's what I draw in over there. And you get really, I can send you some stuff and show you what I started out with, and you'll be really, I think you'd even be impressed, because if you just pick certain lines, you can get the point across of what you're trying to get, and it's all in scale, and it's all, you know, unless you take a really, you sort of have to have the photograph be the angle you want it to be, but the perspective. And if you just trace those lines, it works great.
I'll try anything. And I'm so impressed with people who can draw. Like
I can
Craig
trace some
can do.
samples. I'll send you some stuff, Nancy. It'll, you know, it actually turns out all right. If you got something to go by, how can you go wrong?
Oh,
Yeah,
will
like
try.
you said, take a picture and just trace the picture. And
Well, that's
Exactly.
what I'm
That's a
talking
great
about. You
idea.
just trace a picture of certain key lines and some details. That's sort of what you have to do. You start out that way.
Nancy, that's the project. By next month, I'm expecting to see at least 2 illustrations that you've done from pictures.
there you go, Nancy. You got a job to do.
No pressure though, huh? No
You can
pressure.
do that in your spare time.
I mean,
Nancy.
I've got an iPad Pro and I've got a pencil, so I have no, I have
No
no
excuses.
excuse.
If you really want to cheat, you can use an app on your phone called Ollie, OLLI, and you can take a picture and it just turns it into a drawing.
Oh, there we go.
I'll cut a deal with John and we can agree if you can do the 2 illustrations, you'll get some points for your CapMac.
You're really putting me on the spot here, but
You got to share them at the next meeting though, Nancy.
I will try, but there has to be a just general agreement that nobody will go, oh my God.
All
Or
right.
worse than that, who is that?
No, don't pick a person to start out with. Pick something like a flower arrangement or some kind of
A tree.
architectural thing, or a tree or a leaf. Start with something simple.
Okay.
Faces are the hardest things to do, in my opinion.
Yes, my
Okay.
opinion too.
Don't start with faces.
I'll give a challenge. I make it a competition. Whoever can come up with the best image, I'll get the London Mac user group to choose which one and we'll send you a prize.
Oh,
Oh, cool.
Oh, that's neat.
No pressure there either, huh?
No pressure.
Honestly, I'll type my email address in and we'll see. You've got until Valentine's Day is our next meeting.
Easy date to remember.
Yeah, we're calling our meeting Love Your Mac. And it's how to look after your Mac.
Oh, that's great. That's a good way to say it. Love your Mac.
Well, it's that time of the year too, where people ought to consider spring cleaning. So
exactly.
Whether it's electronic or otherwise.
Oh, Lord, I don't even want to think of spring cleaning.
I'm still trying to
But I
get
need to do
this stuff put away.
Yeah, really. I didn't put any Christmas stuff out, so I don't have that problem. Thank goodness.
Does anybody have any other questions or comments for Craig?
Craig, you did a wonderful job. I really enjoyed it, and I'm going to go buy me a new pencil.
I'm glad I encouraged someone to go out there and draw something new.
Yep.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me that you can do the stuff that you do. And I personally really appreciate you showing it to us because it's inspiring.
Absolutely.
Are y'all meeting in person now?
Who?
At the London Mug?
So that's actually a really good question. We went back to face-to-face meetings for 2 meetings, and then Omicron come along, and we've kind of now gone hybrid. So we're actually doing the both, and it's been really successful. So by all means, if you wish to join us next time, I know some of you already have. We've got a brand new location, which makes social distancing a lot easier.
Where is that?
So we are based in Holborn in central London now.
Yeah.
A pub that sadly lost quite a lot of business has took us on under its wing too. So we're helping them. We have a huge space to use, and they've got some features that we always wanted in terms of having a dedicated Wi-Fi and things, which has been a massive help for us.
What kind of
So-
food do you eat at your meeting?
Oh, that's a good question. So the pub owner has recently changed. He used to be the chef as well as the pub owner for 31 years. So now they're on the hunt for a new one.
Mhm.
So we will see.
New.
But I
new
hear that you have very good food too. So I've heard.
Yes, at our meeting, in-person meeting, yes, we had fajitas,
Awesome. That's great.
chicken and beef. So with
Yeah.
all the fixins,
Tex-Mex.
Yes,
Tex-Mex.
I missed those meat and face meetings for that very reason.
Tex-Mex.
Me too.
I
Tex-Mex.
heard the word Tex-Mac then. So is that Texas Mac?
Tex-Mex.
Tex-Mex.
Yeah.
Margaritas. That's the important
Yay.
part. Margaritas.
That's why everybody misses it. That explains it all now.
There is part of that, true.
Living in Texas is like living in a different country. I recently moved here. I'm getting used to it.
Moved from where?
So do they serve shepherd's pie? And
No, I came from Arizona.
no fish and
Oh, yeah, the dry weather.
no, at the pub on Holborn.
It used to be traditional Sunday dinner was their main thing. Shepherd's pie, you don't see that on a menu very often now. That's kind of long gone. It's more experimental things. Lots of things with chili seems to be very popular for pubs at the moment. I think it makes people buy more alcohol. That's my theory.
Yeah, it's salty.
I've noticed the pubs over there don't spell chili the way we do. They usually put 2 L's in it. Raw.
Yes, they do.
Raw. Teach them.
Sounds like they need some Texans to go and teach them how to cook some hot stuff.
Right.
Some good chili. No beans.
I enjoyed the
just meat.
shepherd's pie when we're there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we can do a shepherd's pie really good.
So maybe we should propose a joint meeting in person in London this summer.
Hey,
Oh, yeah. Sounds good to me.
if
Shepherd's
I get
pie
to
all
go,
round.
if I get to go to England, like we keep planning, my family and I'm hoping to be there at a time when y'all have a meeting. I have no idea if it's going to work out, but if I
hope it
am, I will
does.
join you.
I hope it does.
That'll be
Nan.
great.
That's a threat.
Yeah.
She's
Greg,
bringing
are there-
her drawings with her. That's what I've heard.
Greg, are there Mac user groups and other places like in the Manchester neighborhood or Liverpool?
Do you know what? That's actually a very sad story. There's not very many left active in the UK. That's always been an issue. We recently lost one in the last month. They chose not to renew their location and kind of disbanded rather than going to Zoom. That was 3 Counties Mac user group. I don't know if you've heard of those. There's a few.
Oh,
Most of them are,
Herefordshire, Gloucestershire, and
Wales. Are there any in Wales?
there is one, as far as I'm aware. There's none left in Scotland. We'd like to find some Scottish Mac user groups.
Oh, I want to
Wales
go to
being-
Scotland.
Would the one in Wales probably be in Cardiff or something?
Yeah, it is. That's right. Exeter, Sussex, Seal is quite an interesting one if you've come across that. South Essex League Mac user group. They come from pre-Mac. They came from being an Atari user group
Oh my
before they
goodness.
converted to
wow.
Mac.
And they're
That's an
still around.
interesting one.
That kind of dates them. The 3 counties, you said that's the one that disbanded,
Yeah, it is, sadly.
so it doesn't matter where it is. Yeah, okay.
But I don't know. It might be a good suggestion to hear your feedback as well. We're actually looking at changing how the structure of Mac user group works for the UK. Something that's in our constitution is that we can only have a very small percentage of members that are not within the London area, which has always been a frustration.
Well, it is.
I think Zoom has potentially written off that rule So come March, I think that will be completely changed.
Great.
And we welcome people from all over the world. Just in the last 6 months, it's gone as far as Sweden, Spain, Texas. Members from Washington Pie Group came to visit us in London in person. That was quite an interesting one a few weeks ago.
I think in this day and age that you like, one, with COVID, you have, reason to stay home and reason to utilize things like Zoom. But going forward, especially if places are canceling and stuff like that, I don't think it should be taken out on the entire group that there are probably people who still want to be members. So that's an excellent opportunity where, I'm in school and half the classes on, like, half of the students are online. So they're able to do things from home if there's illness and stuff like that, where you can, still have a community together, even though you can't all be in the same place.
That's right. We didn't want to go back to just being face-to-face because we would miss talking to you guys. That's been a big part of our year and made such a difference. It's nice to hear other people's stories and different environments of how they use Mac. That's made it entirely different for us.
I belong to the Cambridgeshire Family Historical Society, and I'm in San Antonio, Texas. And we have members now from Australia, the US, all over the world, being able to go to their meetings that we would never have been able to go to in person. So I highly recommend doing the Zoom meeting even after the pandemic, because you're going to increase your membership. If nothing else, you can force them to be members and pay membership dues and increase your revenues, and we never have to show up at your meetings, So it's a win-win for everybody.
Well, CapMac has members, 2 members in London. We got members in San Francisco, Seattle. We got one in Southern California. We got one in the Washington, D.C. area. We've got them scattered around.
Yeah.
That definitely makes all the difference. That's true.
Well, one of the things that we've talked about is what I think I hear you saying, which is doing both, doing a Zoom meeting and an in-person meeting as people's needs indicate. And we've really talked about doing that because we have some people who cannot, they've been members of CapMac forever, but they can't drive at night anymore. Right. And to me, it seems like it would be a big advantage. The only thing I can think about is that it would require the speaker to stay in one spot, stay where the camera is so they can see what they're doing. But to me, that's worth it.
Yes.
Donald actually was part of our meeting yesterday, so he could probably give you an understanding of how it went, but we've kind of got past the stage of being able to be stuck in one place too.
Yeah.
It can be done. I'll happily give you guys some help of different ways it could be done hybrid and remotely, or become part of our meeting next time and you can see how it's done. The offer's there.
That's the one on Valentine's Day?
It is.
Great.
Send us the link.
Oh, I will do. For sure.
Chat. Is it still there?
I can post it in the Slack group. I don't know how many of you are active, and I'm sure John can share it to you as well for those that don't use it.
I can get it to anybody. I'll put it in the next email that I send out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Now,
Thank you very much.
what time of day do y'all meet?
Sorry.
I forgot.
It's 7 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time.
Okay.
1 o'clock in the afternoon, our time.
If it helps you, we can go later.
No.
That's perfect.
I would never ask you to do that, but I just want to make sure that I'm up.
6 hours difference.
Yeah, it's now 2:30 in the morning here, so that shows you the time zone difference.
And we better let you go so you can get some sleep.
Right.
I start work at 10 tomorrow, don't worry.
Please.
Well, do we have
Thank
any
you.
other questions for Craig while we've got him here readily available to us?
It was a great presentation. Thank you so much.
It really was.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree with them all, Craig. You've done a great job and makes me wish I had some artistic ability.
Oh, John, you have to draw some pictures.
Yeah.
before the-
Yeah, there you go.
I don't have an Apple Pencil.
Oh. Just an excuse.
Yeah.
I have
Just an
a iPad capable of using it, but I didn't get one. Unless I can draw with my finger, and I think it looked like finger painting.
There's so many times now that you have to sign credit card things and other things with your finger, and it's a joke.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's embarrassing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, the
I
whole
don't like
need
it.
to sign for a
I don't
credit
even-
card's stupid anyway.
I don't even
Yeah.
understand how it can be legal when it's signed in that way. I mean,
I don't either.
Well,
I
but
don't feel comfortable with it.
most people will go to we have a terminal at the museum, and they just go up and go squiggle, 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 and there's no signature, it's just squiggles to meet the requirement. Because it's a bank requirement, not a credit card requirement.
I bet it wouldn't
Some
hold up
people
in
would
a
just
court.
squiggle their signature
Probably
anyway.
not.
When
On
I
that
was a kid,
subject, this might sound odd, but have you noticed if people have recently switched to just using online banking, as in a bank that's just purely online?
Yeah,
That's
I
been a
haven't-
big thing here. Monzo is the most popular one here at the moment. They have a Monzo card that's then on Apple Pay.
I have a daughter that does that. She's real happy with it.
I don't know that
But
we
you
actually,
can't go to the internet. You can't go to the internet bank and get cash. That's.
do we
I guess
actually
you-
have, do we actually even have a bank over here that is online only?
Yes, we have more than one, and I can't remember the one that Jen uses. But she's been using it for a couple of years, and she's real happy with it.
Amplify is one of them, I think.
Allied
Yes,
Bank is
yes.
one of them.
Yeah, a popular one here is
Really
Curve.
need to have cash. Really, I haven't used cash in a while.
Well, there's some things I have to do cash with, like
tipping,
Buying lottery tickets, you have to have cash for that.
Oh yeah, that's right. We have to do that. Yes.
And if you're doing an online only bank, you can't go in and yell at them for screwing stuff up.
That's
Yeah,
true.
that's true.
Don, I'm sorry to see you obviously in the hospital, and I was late getting to the meeting. Are you okay?
I've got a combination of COVID and myasthenia gravis with complication caused by those, coughing and diarrhea, and it's just been an uncomfortable 2 weeks.
Oh
Oh
dear.
my goodness, you're in the
Started off,
hospital right
like,
now?
I hope you get to feeling better soon.
Oh, yes.
Because we're not going to come visit you.
Yeah, sorry.
Not allowed to. As much as I would love to see you in 3D, you guys are pretty enough in 2D.
Well, gee, I thought you were on a movie set. You were an actor and you're playing the part of the patient and the nurses were going to come in.
I do my part so well, they're not going to pay me.
We'll hope you feel better.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the important thing.
Craig saw me the night, last night, right, Craig?
Sorry?
I think we saw each other last night, did we not?
Yes, you did.
Oh, you went to their meeting?
Oh, I trying not to miss it.
Oh, that's great.
You put these two meetings together and it's a platinum mine. Forget the gold mine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Aw.
I feel like I've lived on Keynote this week. I've had to make about 4 presentations for different things.
Oh, my goodness.
Right,
Well,
it's
you
your favorite.
obviously are very practiced at it, and
Yeah,
that's a pleasure for the listener.
Thank you.
absolutely.
It's a
And
very
on-
good presentation tonight, Craig.
Yes.
On that subject, we're also relaunching the podcast this week too. So I've got lots of editing to do. So by all means, look out for that. Season 2 starts afresh.
All right.
Well, good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, guys.
Good
Good night,
Thank
all,
you.
and I'll
Bye.
be in touch, Craig, by email. And the rest
Yeah,
of you,
I'm looking forward to the pictures. I'm coming back.
Yay.
Great.
Nancy, I'm expecting at least 2.
Okay, two it is. It'll be my chance to be humbled.
You can tell Jeff that he has to draw one as well.
Ah,
We'll
Craig,
hold him to that.
We are obviously very, very humbled by your presentation and also enlightened, and we really did appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you. It's been great fun.
All the way from London in our homes here in Austin.
Stick drawings.
That would be me.
I can do a stick drawing.
No cheating. I'll know.
Okay. Yeah, you will, won't you? Okay. I'll get
Thank
my
you. I'll
daughter to
see
do
you all
it.
soon.